Zimmer proposal is that very much of it is about the road. So, and this really goes back to Edgerton's position with respect to the road. Edgerton has an agreement with their developer partner to put in the road when they have 1.5 million square feet of warehouse space. Right now they're a little bit over 800,000 square feet, at least that's what's under construction. So that's going to be delayed some. We don't know how long that's going to be delayed. One thing that we've looked at in terms of paying for the road is to apply for CARS funding. In fact, we discussed that with Edgerton about an application for CARS funding to pay for half the cost of Waverly. Now, we estimated the cost to be, I think it was $4.5 million total cost. So if that CARS funding came through, CARS funding would pay for half the cost, and then Edgerton and Gardner would each pay for 25% of the cost. Now I'm talking about construction cost, and then Gardner and Edgerton would pay for the engineering and design fees. So what we've discussed in the past, before this Zimmer proposal was considered, was to apply for the CARS funding for year 2016. So big industrial, they're motivated to try to do something far sooner than that. So the real issue is paving Waverly Road. The other fact that we know is that we do not currently have the funds to pay for the paving of Waverly Road. So they have discussed, they understand that. That's why they asked, that's one reason they asked to have access off of 183rd. So since they have seen this latest update, they have suggested that, well, we understand Waverly Road's difficult for the city of Gardner, so is there some consideration for more tax abatement? We are meeting with them this week to discuss this again. As they have put it, they're close to making a decision about whether this is a go or no go. Clearly, the city to the west is not in a position of completing the road. So there are a lot of things up in the air. I think that our last direction from the city council was that we're not interested in doing a 65% tax abatement or 75% tax abatement, that our baseline policy is probably a consideration, but it wasn't even clear where the city would ultimately come down at, but that's really where we've left this. So if there's any additional direction from the council tonight that would help us moving forward, that would be helpful.
Mike, I've got a couple of questions. First question I've got is, with regard to Waverly Road, there's a question in my mind as to whether we're in control of our own destiny on Waverly Road still, with the acquisition or the annexation of the land at the corner of Waverly and 191st, the southeast or the northeastern corner of that intersection now in the hands of Edgerton. Obviously, they've put a stake in the, on the east side of Waverly Road there, and it seems to me that now they own that entire stretch. I don't understand why Gardner would be paying for that portion of the road if Edgerton lies on both sides of it. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. The second thing is, why big industrial would be looking for additional tax abatements if they know that Gardner can't afford to pay Waverly Road in the first place? Is that additional tax abatement going to be put in escrow so that we can pay for it with the taxes that are being withheld? That doesn't make sense to me unless they're looking to finance it themselves. To me, there's two things here that just don't wash and don't make a lot of sense.
That question came to my mind as well. I don't know what their intentions are. I really don't think they're in a position to pay for it themselves. I think they're still open to looking for alternatives to paving it, but getting access. And that's clearly a concern because right now the only access to that site is 183rd. I mean, Waverly Road exists, but it's a gravel road.
Correct.
And it would deteriorate pretty quickly. Well, 183rd would probably deteriorate quickly also.
Absolutely.
So those are some questions we have for them.
But what would be Edgerton's position regarding that portion of Waverly Road that's now entirely in their city limits?
We haven't asked, but you're right, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. There's no reason for us to contribute to that portion of Waverly Road.
Mm-mm.
I think the other consideration is, and we've talked about this in the past, that if we annex that property, then there's not much of a way we can keep trucks off of 183rd or Cherokee Street. So, I mean, I think right off the bat, you've got to go back to them and tell them, under no circumstances are we going to let trucks pass through residential areas. And then also say, we're happy to work with you when you're ready to develop the property, but we believe we're sitting in a good, strong negotiating position to not to have to give any abatements. And when you're ready to do that, we're ready to work with you, but we know that Edgerton is not a competitor in this scenario because they want to develop inside their boundaries to get the infrastructure money, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that if we annex it, without Waverly Road being completed, that they have a right to use 183rd Street as a thoroughfare, which I think we're all in agreement is not a very good thing to do.
Well, they're in a right because that's what they asked for, right? I mean, it's not.
Right.
I mean, they asked for that, and as part of when they came to us, they said, as an alternative, if we annex to Gardner, as an alternative, we want 183rd Street. But we could say, we could annex to Gardner, but you're not, I mean, that's not necessarily a right. That is just what they asked for in their
Okay, well, if that's the case, I think we need to go back to them with firm language to say that's off the table.
Yeah, I mean,
now let's start over.
I think we made it clear at our...
Well, I don't think we can't just provide firm language, but we'll have to pass some sort of ordinance or regulations to prohibit truck traffic. We can't say you can't bring your trucks here. We have to have something that states that we're going to actually pass.
But we can say as part of giving you an abatement, we're not interested in having you transit through 183rd Street. I mean, as part of the negotiation, that's off the table.
I understand that piece of it. I don't know that we want to put ourselves in a perspective of where we are going to give the perception of holding the developers hostage with the road. Now, if that's the policy that we don't want to happen, that's fine, but I don't want to go into this situation and say, we're not going to consider anything if you're going to use that road. We're not going to consider this, because I think that actually will place us in a fairly bad light when that goes to other developers that are going to look at laying in that area. And I understand some people say, I don't care what light that is, but it'll resonate, and it'll resonate really loudly. So I understand if that's how we want to go with that, but that just needs to be our policy moving forward, not with big industrial. That just needs to be how the city of Gardner pursues that road, and we need to go ahead and act on that, rather than saying that's neither here nor there with the development on the table, because then we're trying to adapt change rules, because right now there's no legislation in place that would stop that. So we're going to change it to stand in your way. And when you do that, everyone says, well, they're just doing that to stand in the way of business. And is that what we want to go out from that conversation?
We can't change that rule until we annex the property.
We could,
and as soon as
183rd, we could, Italy City, we could do whatever we want.
We could set...
It's already a truck route, though, as I recall, right?
No. 183rd? No. We can set axle restrictions on there. We can set weight restrictions on there. We can limit it to delivery vehicles only. I mean, that would be sufficient, I think, because what they're talking about is heavy haul, trucks going, container vehicles going down that road. Right now, it's not even meant for that kind of transit anyway.
A couple of quick things. First off, the $4.5 million for Waverly, is that considering bringing it up to a heavy haul standard, or is that just the cost of paving Waverly regular?
That's a heavy haul standard, and I would say that's conservatively high.
Okay. So, honestly, I kind of, Edgerton's already got heavy haul capability inside the intermodal complex. They've got heavy haul capability on 191st Street. They don't have the money for heavy